What's going on, everyone, and welcome to Storm the Field with DJ. I am DJ, and today we're in week 12. There's only a couple more weeks of the college football regular season remaining. So I think it's time to finally talk about my least and most wanted college football national titles. Guys, before we start this video, please, the majority of the people who watch my videos are not subscribed. So if you guys could check down below and make sure that you are subscribed, that would be greatly appreciated. Also, while you're down there, please hit the like button and share this video with your friends. It helps push out this content to so many other people, and we could talk football with the world. Now, let's get into these. First, we're going to go with the 3 games I really don't want to see in this college football national championship in 2026. The first, number 3, for the least wanted national championship games, we got Bama Ohio State. Now, this would be a very entertaining game, yes. However, I feel like we've gotten this matchup, or at least these teams, in the college football national title for so long. These teams have been so dominant, at least in my lifetime, that it is kind of annoying to see them being in the title game all the time. One of the greatest things to happen last year was Alabama not being in the college football playoffs, in my opinion. So having those two programs face off in the title game is just would not be anything happy in my head if that is the national title game. I do not like either of these programs. So it would also be a lose-lose situation there. Next, this very similar thing, we got Notre Dame, Ohio State. We did not want a repeat of last year. Last year, these are my 2 least favorite teams in college football. The one I feel like disrespects Miami the most, and the one I think disrespects the college football community the most. I really would not like this national title game. I don't want a repeat of last year where I don't want either team to win. I would like it for at least to have someone that I could root for. But when both teams are teams that you dislike, you don't want to see it. And now it's time for number 1. One that I think would surprise a lot of people. I actually think it would surprise the majority of you, given what I'm wearing and my entire design of my background. The number 1 national title game that I do not want to see is the Miami Hurricanes facing off against the Oregon Ducks. Scream at me all you want, but here's my thought process. You might be saying, "Oh, DJ, well, your team's going to win either way." Yeah, but my team's also going to lose either way. This is the difficult part with this game is that both these programs, especially in the past 20 years, have been struggling, especially when it comes to national titles. So, having both those teams in a national title, I want both to win, and would feel bad with either losing. So while it's a win-win, it's also a lose-lose, and I don't want to have one team win and one team lose. No, I want at least one to be a winner, and I could root against the other team I'm playing against. But in that situation, I wouldn't be able to. So it's really, really going to be a heartbreaking moment if I see those two teams playing against each other. I've said it before, I am making a Mama Kelsey jersey if that happens. But let's get into the positive side. Let's get into the top 10 national title games that I want for the 2026 College Football Playoff Championship. Let's do this. Let's discuss some of the things that I want to see in these games when I rank them. The first thing I want to see, the teams that are in there. Do I like them? Do I not? Obviously, if I had every single game really with the teams I would like, Oregon and Miami would take up all the spots. So only one of these matchups has an Oregon or a Miami in it. But please do note that would truly be the greatest one, any that Miami and Oregon play in, unless they're playing each other. The next thing I want to see is how entertaining of a game would it actually be? Would it be a slugfest of two good teams, but like it's a situation like you think back at Super Bowl 42 when or whichever one it was the Broncos and the Seahawks that was a absolutely amazing defense versus a good offense, but the defense just took over. No, I want a game that truly could be a generational game, such as Bama, Clemson, or Georgia, Bama. The final thing I want to look at is really how much do I think I would enjoy these teams being in the college football playoffs. So not only if I like these teams and like, but the storyline. You know, there's a difference between liking a team and liking the storyline. Liking the storyline of a Cinderella run is completely different to I like this small school and I'm gonna cheer for them. No, you're rooting for the Cinderella. You're rooting for the upset. Doesn't matter what team is there. So, without further ado, let's finally start this with number 10, which is Ohio State versus Indiana. Now, I would love this matchup. These are the two biggest college football teams and the two best at this moment in time, at the time of recording. I really do believe that these two are some of the best programs in college football at the moment. And the storyline for this game would be amazing. This is the new dog of the Big Ten, Indiana, who had never been good in the conference before. Finally turns it around, and now after two straight seasons, they're in the national title game. But who do they have to get by? And it's the kings of the Big Ten itself, with the Ohio State Buckeyes, the reigning national champs. Will Kirk Signetti be able to do it with Fernando Mendoza? Or will Ryan Day continue to grow his legend at Ohio State? This storyline could go in so many different directions. However, the reason I had to spot this game this low is because, firstly, I don't like Ohio State. They are my second least favorite team in all college football. So that's partly, again, it's team that I like the team. I like Indiana, even though they give the Ducks a loss, but I don't like Ohio State. However, the main reason I have to put this game so low is because at this point in the season, these two teams would probably be the number one and number two seed, or number one and three seed. They would all both have bye weeks. This would be a game that had no chaos in the playoffs because the two best teams were the ones that made it. So, in that sense, it's kind of boring. However, I do think it would be an absolutely incredible game. And I think that most likely Ohio State would be able to take the victory here. I mean, we'll see. Will most likely have this matchup in the Big Ten championship. So, I think that's what we gotta do, and I think in my head, Ohio State would win this one, but Indiana could easily get it done. Let's get into the next one, which is number 9. We have Ole Miss versus Alabama. This is another great storyline. Alabama, after Saban left, it looked like it was in shambles with Kalen DeBoer. That first season missed the playoffs. 3 losses, including one to an unranked Oklahoma at home. And now you turn it around and you go back to the way you were. You had those amazing recruits. It looks like you're going to be good again. You start the season ranked in the top 10. And you lose your season opener to an unranked Florida State team. And everyone thinks once again that you are out, that you are done. But you bring it back. And you go and you become the number 4 team in the country. And you're fighting for this dynasty. The one that had been built to stay. Now with you at the helm. And that is what Kalen DeBoer is trying to do. But in his way, you have a team that has been fighting in the SEC for so long. In the Ole Miss Rebels and Lane Kiffin. And they are finally, after so long that they look like they're going to do it, they are finally in the national title game. And they have to go through the kings of the SEC. This is a very similar scenario to the last one where the new dog team is kind of facing up against the king of the conference in the national title. A very similar situation to the last one. I do think that this would be a very good game. I think that both of these teams are up there. And this would be a shootout of a game, which would be very interesting. Um, Points were deducted because I don't like Alabama and would not like to see them win another title. Um, but the other reason that this is so low is because it is two SEC schools. It's not a like of the school dislike of the schools necessarily, but how much the SEC has just been dominant these past 10, 20 years of college football. So I would like this to see this matchup, but I would honestly prefer non-SEC teams to be playing in the national title. But that leads us in to number 8 with the Texas A&M Aggies facing off against the Ohio State Buckeyes. This would be a game and a half. I think out of every single one on this list, besides maybe my number one, this game would be the most offensive game out there. Texas A&M with Marcel Reed has been insane this 2025 season. And Oklahoma or Ohio State continues to be that team that really could do damage to anyone offensively, especially with Julian Sain in the backfield now and Jeremiah Smith catching the ball. But who perseveres? Who perseveres? The SEC or the Big Ten? And I would have to say that the Big Ten goes up and wins it with Ohio State winning back-to-back national titles if this were the case. Now, this game is ranked so low, again, because Ohio State is in it. And I'm not the biggest Texas A&M fan, so I would not love to see that. But a very similar reason to number 10 being that low as well. They are two good teams. They are two teams that you could easily see in the college football title and championship game. And that would probably be the 1 and 2 seed. So seeing that is kind of boring and not a great storyline. So that goes in to number 6, which would have a good storyline. With the first group of 5 team making the college football national title game using this new college football playoff system, as we have USF taking on Indiana. USF is a very good team. I cannot deny it. Byron Brown has really changed that program around, and no one thought that they would be as good as they were this season. Especially taking down Florida, being one of the top-ranked teams in the AAC. But there would be no match for Indiana. Miami showed what they could do against that team, and Indiana would do something very similar. So for that reason, it has to be low because I don't believe the game would be that entertaining. It would be a very high-scoring game, but a very one-sided game. Both of these teams are alike, so no real points deducted there. And it would not be a bad storyline. That is a Cinderella run by number 12, probably the 12th seed in the USF Bulls. So you gotta rank it high based on that. Um, that is definitely one that I would like to see up there, but it was definitely one of the least realistic. So I had to kind of deduct points off from there. But next we go on to number 5 with Oklahoma facing off against Texas. Now, we saw this matchup already, and it was a banger of a game, with Oklahoma losing to Texas in the Red River Shootout. Now, into the playoffs, can they both survive? As they would probably be lower seeds than the 11, around the 10 to, or the 9 to 10, the 9 to 11 seed. They would be a low seed, so that would definitely be Cinderella-esque runs by those two programs to make it to the national title. But also, you would have such a good national title in the fact that it is a rivalry. You know how exciting that would be? Also, the storyline, think about it. Arch Manning starts off as the Heisman favorite. Such a big guy. Loses his first game and plays okay throughout the season. But the playoffs come around and he leads the team to the national title. And then John Mateer pulling something Cam Ward couldn't, transferring him from Wazoo into a program, taking that program, reversing it because Oklahoma was not good last year, reversing it and taking that program to the national title and probably raising his odds for the Heisman once again. But who would be able to get it done? We saw this game and we saw who got it done. It's the Longhorns, and their defense would be able to take this one home. And this is a game I really do feel like it's smack dab in the middle of games I would like to see. It would be a good game with teams that I'm okay with a good storyline, but it's just not good enough. You don't have those teams that are these Cinderella schools, those schools that are that strong, like those underdogs that you've been cheering for all season. Arch Manning was Texas started off the season as #1 in the country. Oklahoma was a top 5 team at one point. It's not like that Cinderella run from Oklahoma started decent and then fell off. It's not like Indiana who started out unranked to then become the top 2 team in the country. So that's keeping it down. But let's get into number 4, which is UGA at Bama, Georgia at Bama, or versus Bama for the national title. This is a rivalry, I would say, especially over these past couple of years. We saw what happened in this game last year, which was an insane game. Alabama taking an early lead to then Georgia coming back into it, but Bama finishing it off. And a very similar story of what happened this year, of the game being close throughout. And for those of you who have watched the entirety of the college football championships in the past 15 years, you know one of the greatest plays in the national title happened in this game. Tua Tagovailoa, the bench quarterback, comes in for Jalen Hurts in the national title game before throwing a game-winning touchdown to Devonta Smith. There was no better storyline than these two teams facing off once again. But yet, Alabama would be playing in the title. And that holds it back a lot. And so would Georgia. These teams have been in the national title these past couple of years. They're not new faces. And I want to see new faces in the national title. So that's why I kind of have to hold it back. Even though it is probably the best storyline, maybe the best game that we could get, it's not the most fun. And that's why it has to go at number 4. But finally, we go into the first game and the only game, including the Ducks, as we got number 3, Ohio State versus Oregon. This would be such a good story. These are 2 of the best teams in the Big Ten, in my opinion. 2 of the best teams in the country. And remember the storyline from last year. A very similar thing. Oregon beats Ohio State in Oregon. Then the Rose Bowl happens. And Ohio State demolishes Oregon. Goes on to win the national title. Imagine if it's reversed this year. Imagine the Ducks lose to Indiana at home. They are down in the dumps. They go to the playoffs as a lower seed, just like Ohio State did. And all of a sudden, they face Ohio State once again for a shot to win it all. For Oregon to win their first national title in program history. For Oregon to get revenge on the humiliation of the year before. A chance for Ohio State to repeat as a champion going through the obstacle that cost them their first loss of the season last season. It is such a great storyline. And while this might be up there in my favorites for the national title game, I think having Ohio State in there brings it down in my opinion. But also, there's no Cinderella run there, and I want to see a Cinderella run in this national title, and it would be cool to see those 2 teams play it out for a national title. but I don't think it would be the most entertaining of games. I think it would be a one-way flip-flop. Um, Either Oregon goes and destroys Ohio State, or the other way. A very similar situation to the Rose Bowl. Um, or it could be one of the best games ever, like we had last year in Autzen Stadium. This is a game that could be a flip flop either way, and so you can't necessarily put it down right there as it's going to be a great game. I mean, when the Ducks have been tested this season, they've struggled, especially against Indiana and Penn State. So it would be very interesting to see that game, but can't really put it much higher than number 3. But next, we got the penultimate. My number 2 most wanted to see national championship for 2026 is Georgia Tech and Georgia. Good old-fashioned hate. Clean, good old-fashioned hate. A rivalry renewed for a national title. How much better can that storyline get? This is a rivalry that had the entire college football world outraged for the name change at the beginning of the season. And now, it's in the national title. Now, this game that went to 7 overtimes a year prior is now our national title. This game would be so good. I think Haynes King would be able to do amazing against Gunnar Stockton. These defenses would trade blows and big hits on the quarterback. But I think there's one better matchup, which, while this next matchup doesn't have Cinderella runs, it doesn't have the best storyline. I think this would be the best game of all possible college football playoff national titles for 2026. And that matchup is Indiana and Texas A&M. These are two of the strongest offenses in the game. They are some of the best teams in the game. And while these two teams would definitely be high ranked and high seeds, these are teams that have not made a college football playoff or a college football national title in over 20 years. This is two new programs stepping into the fight for a national title. We would have someone different winning it. And we have Fernando Mendoza versus Marcel Reed. We have such good matchups in this game. And I could see either team coming away with this championship. And that's why I say Indiana versus Texas A&M is my most wanted college football playoff national championship game. But yeah, guys, if you guys do agree with me on my list, please like the video and subscribe down below. Also, if you guys didn't, why not comment what your thoughts are and what your top 10 are most wanted to see national title games are. But it's just my opinion. We're here to share. We're here to love college football. But at the end of the day, I rep my Ducks and my Canes. And I bleed orange and green and yellow. And DJ out. I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.